Elias lived a quiet life. His small house stood at the edge of a village with wide fields stretching around it. He enjoyed his peace, planting vegetables in his garden, feeding the birds, and listening to the soft sound of wind moving through the trees. For years, nothing strange ever happened in his life, but that calm was about to change. One evening, the sky was clear and filled with stars. Elias was outside, sitting on a wooden chair near his garden. He liked to watch the stars before going to bed. They always made him feel small but calm, as if the universe was much larger than his little worries. That night, however, the stars did not stay still. A sudden streak of light crossed the sky, brighter than any shooting star he had ever seen. It looked like fire, but it moved too smoothly, almost like a ship gliding through space. Elias stood up quickly. "What was that?" he whispered to himself. He shaded his eyes and watched. The light grew larger and closer. Then, without warning, it vanished behind the trees near his garden, and the ground gave a soft tremble. Birds flew out from the forest, their wings beating loudly in the silence. Elias's heart raced. Something had fallen nearby. For a moment he thought about running into his house and locking the door, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He picked up a lantern, lit it, and walked toward the edge of his garden. He expected to see smoke or maybe a piece of a fallen rock. Instead, he saw something he would never forget. There, lying among the rows of plants, was a woman. She looked weak, her clothes torn and glowing faintly with colors he had never seen before. In her arms, she held a small child wrapped in a thin silver cloth. The woman tried to stand but fell to her knees. Her face was pale, her breathing heavy. With trembling lips, she whispered, "Please, don't let them take her." Then she collapsed on the soil, holding the child tightly. Elias froze. He had never seen such a thing in his life. The woman was not from his village. She was not even dressed like anyone he had ever known. And the light around her clothes, was it from the strange object that fell from the sky? His mind raced with questions, but the most important thought was clear. She needed help. He knelt beside her. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly, though he knew she could not answer. The child in her arms let out a small cry, weak but alive. Elias's heart softened. Whatever had brought them here, they were helpless now. He carefully lifted the woman and the child, surprised at how light they felt. He carried them into his house and laid them on the couch. The lantern light fell on their faces. The woman looked human, but there was something different. Her skin had a faint glow, almost like moonlight. Her hair was long and silver, shining even in the dim room. The child looked no different from any baby except her eyes. When she opened them for a second, Elias saw a deep blue color, brighter than the sky itself. He felt a strange warmth in his chest when she looked at him. The woman stirred, opening her eyes for a moment. "Safe," she whispered. Her voice was weak but soft like music. Elias nodded, though he wasn't sure if she understood. "You're safe here," he said gently. "Rest now." She closed her eyes again, holding the child close. Elias covered them both with a blanket. He sat on the chair beside them, staring in silence. His heart beat fast, his mind full of thoughts. Who were they? Where did they come from? And what did she mean when she said, "Don't let them take her"? Hours passed. The night grew deeper, but Elias could not sleep. He listened to the woman's shallow breathing, worried it might stop. He looked at the child who now slept peacefully, her tiny hand holding the edge of the blanket. Somehow the sight filled him with a sense of responsibility he had never felt before. He did not know why, but he felt as if fate had chosen him for something important. At midnight, a strange sound drifted through the air outside. It was not wind, not animals, and not anything Elias had ever heard before. A soft humming like metal singing in the distance. He went to the window and looked out. The sky above the forest glowed faintly, as if lights were moving among the trees. Elias's hands grew cold. Someone, or something, was out there. He turned back to the woman and child. Her words echoed in his mind. Don't let them take her. Whoever she feared, they might already be near. Elias felt a shiver, but he clenched his fists. He was only a simple man with no weapons, no power, and no knowledge of the stars. But he knew one thing. He could not let anyone harm the helpless child sleeping in his house. He sat back down, keeping watch through the night. Every sound made his heart jump, but he did not leave his place. He promised himself silently, as long as they are in my house, no one will take them. He did not know how he would keep that promise, but he meant every word. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Elias looked at the sleeping woman and child again. The woman's breathing was steadier now, though she was still weak. The child moved slightly, stretching her small hand toward the morning sun. Elias blinked in surprise. Where her hand reached, the first flower in his garden bloomed early, even though the season had not yet come. He stared, filled with wonder and confusion. Who was this child? Why was she so important that someone would chase her across the stars? He did not have the answers, but he knew his quiet life was no longer the same. Something far greater had begun, and it had started in his own garden. The morning sun rose slowly over the hills. Its golden light touched the roof of Elias's small house, warming the air and filling the sky with soft colors. Inside, the house was quiet except for the gentle breathing of the woman and the soft sounds of the child. Elias sat near them, his eyes heavy from staying awake all night. Still, he did not sleep. His mind was too full. He looked at the woman again. Her silver hair shone faintly in the sunlight, and her face, though pale, was calm. The child rested peacefully against her, wrapped in the same silver cloth. Elias leaned closer, checking to see if they were truly all right. Relief washed over him when he saw that both were breathing steadily. Just then, the woman's eyes opened. They were deep and bright, carrying both tiredness and strength. She blinked slowly, as if trying to understand where she was. Elias leaned forward and spoke, gently, "You're safe here. This is my home." The woman's lips parted. Her voice was soft but clear. "Where am I?" "You are on Earth," Elias said. "A small village far from the city. I found you in my garden last night. You fainted." The woman tried to sit up but winced from weakness. Elias quickly helped her lean against a pillow. She held her child close, as if afraid someone would take her away. Her eyes softened for a moment as she looked at the sleeping little girl. "My name is Lyra," she said finally. Her voice carried a musical tone even though it was weak. She looked at Elias carefully. "You helped us. Thank you." Elias nodded. "I did what anyone would do." Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, not anyone. Many would turn away, but you brought us inside." Elias did not know what to say. He was not used to such words. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly and then asked, "And the child? What is her name?" Lyra's eyes brightened with warmth. "Mira," she whispered. "Her name is Mira." At that moment, as if hearing her name, the child stirred. Her tiny eyes opened, and Elias saw again that deep, glowing blue. Mira looked around with innocent wonder, her gaze moving from her mother to Elias. She reached out a small hand, and Elias felt something strange, a gentle warmth in the air, as if sunlight itself had touched him. He smiled without thinking. "She's beautiful." Lyra held Mira close and nodded, but her smile faded quickly. She looked at Elias with seriousness in her eyes. "You must know the truth. Mira is not an ordinary child. That is why I asked you not to let them take her." Elias's chest tightened. "Who are they?" he asked. Lyra looked toward the window as if expecting something outside. Her voice grew quiet. "Collectors. Beings who believe rare gifts should not be free. They chase across worlds, searching for those who are different. Mira is one of them." Elias frowned. "Different? How?" Lyra looked down at her child. "Mira carries a gift unlike any other. She can heal life. Even as a baby, her touch brings growth, strength, and hope. On our colony, she healed a garden with her laughter. When she touched the sick, their pain eased. The collectors heard of her. They believed such power should belong to them. They would take her, raise her as their own, and use her gift only when they wish. Elias listened in silence. He remembered the flower in his garden that had bloomed at dawn when Mira stretched her hand. The memory made his heart beat faster. He realized Lyra was telling the truth. He leaned forward. And you ran away to protect her? Lyra nodded. Her eyes grew heavy with sorrow. We escaped in a small craft. I guided it here, far from their reach. But I fear they followed. I fear they are already near. Elias thought of the strange humming he had heard last night, the glow in the forest. He shivered. It was no dream. They really were being hunted. Lyra placed her hand on his arm. Her touch was light but urgent. You must promise me, Elias, if something happens, you must protect her. Do not let them take her. She must grow free, not as their prize. Elias looked into her eyes. He was just a simple man, with no great strength or knowledge of the stars. But when he saw the child Mira and the trust in Lyra's eyes, he felt a responsibility greater than anything before. He nodded slowly. I promise. Lyra's shoulders relaxed slightly, though fear still remained in her face. She whispered, Then perhaps we still have hope. For the rest of the morning, Elias cared for them. He brought food, though Lyra ate little, her body too weak. Mira, however, laughed softly as Elias let her hold a wooden spoon. The sound of her laughter filled the room with warmth. Elias had lived alone for many years, yet in that moment, the house felt alive again. As the day passed, Elias stepped outside to check the garden. His eyes widened. Several plants near the spot where Lyra had collapsed were growing faster than normal. Flowers bloomed early. Leaves shone with deep color. Elias bent down and touched the soil. It felt warm, as if filled with hidden energy. He looked back toward the house where Mira's soft laughter carried through the window. She truly is special, Elias whispered to himself. But his thoughts were soon disturbed. From the edge of the forest came a strange sound again, low and steady. He straightened quickly, looking into the trees. The same faint glow appeared between the trunks, moving slowly. His heart pounded. They were not alone. He hurried back inside. Lyra noticed his face and grew tense. They are close, aren't they? She asked. Elias did not want to frighten her, but he nodded. I saw lights again, near the forest. Lyra held Mira tighter. Then it has begun. They will not stop. Elias clenched his fists. He had promised. He would not break his word. We'll find a way, he said firmly. This is Earth. Here, people stand together. You are not alone. Lyra looked at him with surprise. Slowly, a tear rolled down her cheek. On my world, many would not risk themselves. But here, you are different. Elias gave a small smile. We humans may be simple, but when it comes to protecting children, we don't turn away. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered, Then perhaps this world is the right place for Mira after all. As the sun set that evening, Elias prepared for another sleepless night. The woman and her child rested in his home, but the forest outside held shadows and strange lights. He knew the collectors were near. Yet, for the first time, he did not feel afraid alone. He felt the strength of his promise and the strange hope Mira carried with her. And so, as the stars appeared again above the hills, Elias sat by the window watching. The child of the stars was under his roof, and he would not let anyone take her. The next morning came with heavy clouds. The sky looked darker than usual, and the air carried a strange stillness. Elias stepped out into his garden, looking at the trees that lined the edge of his land. The forest seemed different, as if it was hiding secrets. He felt watched, though no one stood in sight. He turned back to his small house where Lyra and Mira were resting. Mira's laughter had already filled the rooms once that morning when she woke. The sound was sweet and cheerful, like bells ringing, but Elias could not shake away his worry. He had promised Lyra he would keep the child safe, yet the signs outside told him the danger was drawing closer. Later in the day, Elias went into the village to buy food. The people there greeted him kindly as they always did, but he noticed something unusual. A few villagers spoke of strange things happening during the night. One man said his radio had stopped working for hours. Another woman mentioned her farm. Animals had acted restless, staring toward the forest as if something unseen was there. Elias kept his thoughts to himself, though his heart grew heavier with every word. He knew the villagers were not imagining things. The collectors were near. When Elias returned home, Lyra was sitting by the window, holding Mira in her arms. She looked pale but alert. "I felt it," she said softly, before Elias even spoke. "You felt what?" Elias asked. "Their presence," Lyra whispered. "They are searching. They move quietly, but their energy disturbs life. Animals sense it first. Even the plants grow uneasy." Elias frowned. He had never thought of plants as uneasy, but when he looked at his garden, he noticed something strange. Some flowers were bent toward the house as if leaning for safety. It gave him a chill. That evening, as the sun lowered, Elias went out to check the fence around his land. He wanted to feel prepared, though he had no real plan for what to do if the collectors appeared. His house was simple, with no strong walls or weapons. All he had was his promise, and he knew that sometimes a promise gave more strength than any tool. As he walked near the trees, he stopped suddenly. Between the branches, a faint shape moved. It was tall, thin, and not like a human. The figure stood very still, almost blending with the shadows. Then in an instant it was gone. Elias's breath caught. He had seen them. He hurried back inside, locking the door. Lyra looked at him, her eyes sharp with fear. "They are here," Elias said in a low voice. Lyra hugged Mira close. "They will not leave until they find her." For a while, silence filled the room. Only Mira's soft breathing broke it. Elias sat by the table, thinking hard. He felt small against such an enemy. But then he remembered Lyra's words from before. Collectors were not destroyers. They were takers. They believed rare gifts should belong to them, not be free. That thought gave Elias a spark of courage. "They think everything can be taken," Elias said slowly. "But they don't understand people like us. Here on Earth, we protect what matters. They may have power, but they do not have our hearts." Lyra looked at him with a faint smile. "Perhaps that is why we came here." That night, the strangeness around the village grew worse. Lights flickered in houses, dogs barked without stopping, and some villagers swore they saw shapes moving at the edge of the fields. Elias stayed awake, keeping watch by the window. Every time he saw a glow in the trees, his chest tightened. But each time he told himself, "I promised. I will not fail." The next morning, Elias's neighbor, old Mr. Harlan, came by to ask questions. "Elias," he said, scratching his head, "you seen anything strange these nights? Folks are saying the forest is haunted. My cows won't go near it anymore." Elias forced a calm smile. "Just shadows, maybe. Nothing to fear." He did not want to involve others yet. He feared what might happen if the village discovered Mira's gift. Some might want to protect her, yes, but others might try to use her power for themselves, just like the collectors. Humanity's heart could be good, but it could also be tempted. After his neighbor left, Elias returned inside. Lyra was watching him. She seemed to know his thoughts without him saying them. "You do not trust your own people with Mira?" she asked gently. Elias sighed. "I want to, but not everyone chooses kindness. Some see a gift and think of how it can serve them, not how it can serve others. If they knew about Mira, some would love her, but some might treat her the same way as the collectors would. That is why I must be careful." Lyra nodded sadly. "On my world, It was the same. Some loved her, some feared her, and some wanted to own her. That is why I ran. I hoped Earth might be different. Elias thought for a long time. Then he said firmly, "It can be different, but only if we choose to make it so." The day passed quietly, but the sense of being watched never left. At night, Elias once again saw faint glows moving among the trees. He stood at the window, his hand gripping the wooden chair tightly. He whispered to himself, "You will not take her, not while I breathe." Inside, Lyra hummed softly to Mira, a lullaby from her world. The sound was gentle, filled with both sorrow and hope. Elias listened, and though the night outside felt heavy with shadows, the song gave him strength. The collectors were close. Their hidden threat was no longer just a fear, it was real. They waited in the forest, patient and watchful. Elias knew the time would come soon when they would step out of the shadows. He did not know what he would do when that happened. But he knew one truth clearly: humanity's choice was being tested. Would they protect a child not their own, even if she came from the stars? Or would they give in to fear and selfish desire? Elias pressed his hand against the window, staring into the dark forest. He whispered his answer, steady and sure. "She is safe here. She is one of us now." And in that quiet moment, though the forest held strange eyes and hidden lights, Elias felt that his promise was stronger than any shadow. The following days passed slowly, each one heavier than the last. Elias felt the air itself had changed. It was not only the forest that seemed strange. Even the village carried a quiet tension. People whispered about shadows moving at night, about lights no one could explain. Some believed it was spirits, others thought it was a trick of the weather. But Elias knew the truth. The collectors were drawing closer. Inside his small house, Elias tried to keep life normal for Lyra and Mira. He cooked simple meals, fetched water, and tended the garden. But no matter how ordinary the work looked, he could not forget the danger outside. Every sound in the forest made his heart jump. Every time Mira laughed, he wondered if someone was listening. One evening, Lyra spoke to him while Mira slept in her arms. "Elias," she said softly, "I am not strong. My body grows weaker each day. I do not know how long I can stay by her." Sighed. Her eyes filled with sorrow. "That is why I gave you the promise. She must live free even if I cannot." Elias shook his head firmly. "You will live. Don't give up." Lyra gave a small smile. "Hope keeps me breathing, but truth keeps me honest. If the time comes, you must be ready." Elias fell silent. He had never raised a child, never even thought of it. Yet when he looked at Mira, he felt a strange bond. She was not his by blood, but somehow she already belonged in his heart. That night he heard voices outside. Not the voices of collectors, these were human. Elias peered through the window and saw two of his neighbors standing by the fence, pointing toward the forest. "I swear I saw lights again," one of them said. "Maybe Elias knows something," the other replied. "His house is nearest the woods." Elias stepped away from the window quickly, his chest tightening. If the villagers grew suspicious, they might come looking. And if they found Mira, what would they do? Would they help protect her? Or would curiosity and fear turn them against her? The next morning, Elias went into the village for supplies. The whispers grew louder. Some asked him directly if he had seen anything. Elias kept his answers short. "Just shadows," he said. "Nothing more." But inside, he felt the weight of their stares. When he returned home, Lyra was waiting at the door. She looked at him with sharp eyes. "They are beginning to notice, aren't they?" "Yes," Elias admitted. "They ask questions." Lyra sighed. "It was always a matter of time. Secrets cannot stay hidden forever. The choice will come, Elias. Your people will have to decide what they value most, fear or kindness." Elias sat heavily on the chair. Her words echoed in his mind. humanity's choice. He had always believed his people were capable of compassion, of standing together in times of need. But he also knew their weaknesses: greed, fear, and mistrust. If Mira's gift became known, which side of humanity would rise? That evening, Mira did something that gave him a glimpse of the answer. While Elias was preparing food, she toddled across the room toward a dying plant in a pot by the window. The plant had been withered for weeks, its leaves brown. Mira touched it gently with her small hand. Within seconds, the leaves straightened, their color turning fresh and green again. Elias froze, staring in awe. Lyra smiled faintly. "She cannot help it," she said. "Her gift flows as naturally as breathing." Mira laughed, clapping her hands as the plant bloomed with tiny white flowers. Elias felt warmth in his heart, but at the same time he feared what might happen if anyone else saw it. And yet part of him wondered, perhaps hiding her forever was not the answer. Perhaps humanity needed to see her gift, to understand that such a child was not a danger, but a blessing. The next day, Elias's closest friend, a kind woman named Marin, came to visit. She was worried about him. "Elias," she said, "you look tired. People say strange things are happening near your house. If you're in trouble, you can tell me." Elias hesitated. He trusted Marin, but the promise weighed heavy on him. Still, when Mira peeked out from behind Lyra's blanket and Marin saw her bright blue eyes, something changed. Marin knelt down slowly and whispered, "What a beautiful child." Elias watched carefully, ready for fear or suspicion. But Marin's face softened with kindness. "She doesn't look dangerous, she looks like a gift." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, someone from Earth had seen Mira and responded not with fear, but with love. That night, Elias spoke to Lyra. "Maybe we cannot hide forever. Maybe the only way to keep her safe is to let the right people know. If they see her gift, they may choose to protect her, not take her away." Lyra looked uncertain. "Or they may choose the other path." "Yes," Elias admitted. "But if we do nothing, the collectors will still come. We must trust that some hearts are stronger than fear." Lyra was silent for a long time. At last she said, "Then perhaps it is time for humanity to be tested." The next evening, Elias invited Marin back along with 2 other trusted neighbors. They gathered quietly in his home. At first they were confused. But when Mira touched a broken branch on the table and it bloomed with fresh leaves, their confusion turned to wonder. "This child, she carries light," one neighbor whispered. "She must be protected," Marin said firmly. "If others knew, some might try to use her, but we will not allow that." In that moment, Elias felt a spark of hope. Humanity's choice was not yet complete, but he had seen the beginning of it. His people were not perfect, but they had the power to stand with him. Later that night, as Elias stood by the window again, he saw the glow of the collectors moving among the trees. His heart pounded, but he did not feel as alone as before. Behind him, Lyra rested with Mira, and in the village nearby, a few good hearts now shared his secret. The collectors would come soon. When they did, Elias knew it would not just be his choice that mattered, it would be humanity's. Would they rise together to protect a child who carried hope, or would they fail her? He clenched his fists, staring into the shadows. "We will show them," he whispered. "We will show them what it means to be human." And though the forest trembled with hidden watchers, Elias felt his promise grow stronger than ever. Humanity's choice was coming, and he was ready to meet it. The night was quiet, yet Elias could feel a tension in the air. It was the kind of silence that made every sound sharper, every shadow darker. He sat by the window as always, watching the forest. The glow among the trees appeared again, soft, lights moving slowly, patiently. The collectors were waiting. But Elias was not the same man he had been on the first night. He was no longer alone. A small circle of his neighbors, Marin, old Mr. Harlan, and 2 others, now knew about Mira. They had seen her gift with their own eyes. And instead of fear, they had chosen wonder and kindness. During the day, they came quietly to his house, bringing food, water, and supplies. They spoke little about what they had seen, but their eyes carried determination. They had decided, Mira must be protected. Elias felt hope rise in his chest. Humanity's heart was not perfect, but here were people ready to stand together for a child who was not even theirs. It gave him strength. One morning, Marin stood in the kitchen with Elias while Lyra and Mira rested. "The village will soon notice more," she said. "We cannot hide forever. If the collectors come in the open, others will see them." "What will you do then?" Elias thought for a moment. "Then they must see who we are," he answered. "Not fearful, not greedy, but strong enough to protect what is good." Marin nodded slowly. "Then we must prepare." That evening, Elias gathered his small group of friends inside his house. Lyra sat nearby, holding Mira close. The baby's blue eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, filling the room with a soft comfort. Elias looked at each of them. "You all know the truth now. Mira is special. The collectors want her, but she is not theirs. She belongs here, with us, where she can grow free. I will stand to protect her. Will you stand with me?" Marin spoke first, her voice steady. "Yes, she is a gift. We will not let them take her." Old Mr. Harlan nodded firmly. "I've lived many years, Elias. I've seen how people can choose fear over love. But this time I choose love. The child stays." The others agreed, one by one. Lyra's eyes shone with tears. On my world, people argued, feared, and divided over her gift. But here, you stand as one. Perhaps humanity is stronger than I thought. Elias smiled softly. "We are not perfect, but when we remember what matters, we can be more than what others expect." That night, the group made their quiet plans. They would keep watch in shifts. If the collectors approached, they would stand together, showing no fear. Elias knew they had no weapons strong enough to fight beings from the stars, but he believed unity itself was their greatest shield. The days that followed tested their courage. Strange signals filled the air. Radios crackled, machines failed, and animals grew restless. Lights floated above the forest like lanterns with no flame. At night, faint shadows moved closer to the edges of the fields. One evening, Mira played on the floor while the adults watched her. She crawled toward a small bird that had flown in through the window and was lying weakly on the ground. Mira touched it with her tiny hand, and within seconds the bird lifted its head, flapped its wings, and flew again. Everyone in the room gasped softly. The miracle was so natural to Mira, yet it filled the adults with wonder. "She brings life wherever she goes," Marin whispered. "If the whole village saw this, they would believe." Elias shook his head gently. "Some would, but some would want to control her. For now, only we must know." But his words proved true sooner than he wished. That very night, the collectors stepped out of the shadows. Elias was keeping watch when he saw them clearly for the first time. They were tall, slender, with forms that shifted slightly as if made of both light and shadow. Their eyes glowed faintly, not with anger, but with calm certainty. They walked with slow grace, as though nothing in the world could resist them. Elias's breath caught, but he did not run. He stepped outside, standing firm at the edge of his garden. Behind him, his friends gathered quickly, their faces pale, but determined. Lyra stayed inside with Mira, holding her child close. One of the collectors spoke, its voice deep and echoing, as though many voices spoke together. "Human, you shelter what does not belong to you. The child carries a gift too rare for your kind. Give her to us, and no harm will come to you." Elias's heart pounded, but he stood tall. "She is not yours," he said firmly. "Her gift is not a prize to be taken. She is a child, and she belongs with her mother and with us." The collector tilted its head. "You are fragile. You are weak. Why would you resist us?" Marin stepped forward, her voice steady. "Because we are human. And when something innocent needs protection, we do not give it away. We stand together. The collectors were silent for a moment. Their glowing eyes studied the small group of ordinary villagers standing against them. Elias felt fear pressing on his chest, but he forced his voice to stay steady. You may have traveled the stars. You may have power beyond ours. But there is one thing you will never understand: our hearts. We are not perfect, but we will never give up a child, not to you, not to anyone. Just then, Mira let out a soft cry from inside the house. The collectors turned their glowing gaze toward the sound. Lyra stepped out, holding Mira close. The child, sensing the tension, reached her tiny hand toward the strangers. To everyone's surprise, the collectors hesitated. The air around them flickered slightly, as if they were unsure. Mira's gift reached even them. Her presence was not only life but light, touching hearts that did not know warmth. The leader of the collectors spoke again, more slowly this time. She is strong. Yes, Elias said, his voice full of pride. And her strength will grow here, among us, not under your control. The collectors looked at one another. For the first time, Elias sensed uncertainty in them. Humanity's choice had been made clear. Ordinary men and women, fragile in body but strong in spirit, standing together to protect life. The standoff hung in silence. The collectors had power, but the humans had something they could not measure: unity, love, and courage. And in that moment, Elias believed, perhaps that was enough. The forest was still that night, yet the air felt alive. The glow of the collectors had faded into the shadows, leaving only the stars and the soft rustle of leaves. Elias stood at the edge of his garden, his heart still racing from the standoff earlier. He had never imagined that ordinary humans could face beings from the stars and make them hesitate. Yet somehow, they had. Behind him, Lyra held Mira close. The child yawned and stretched, her tiny hand brushing against her mother's silver hair. Elias smiled faintly. For the first time in days, the tension in the air felt lighter. Not gone, but lighter. The villagers who had joined him, Marin, Mr. Harlan, and the others, stood near the house. They were tired, but their faces carried a quiet pride. They had chosen to stand together to protect something precious and unknown, and their courage had made a difference. The lead collector stepped forward from the trees, its glowing eyes softening. Elias felt no fear now, only a firm resolve. The beings were powerful, but they did not understand what humans could do when hearts were united. You have resisted, the collector said slowly. Why? Elias held Mira carefully, keeping her safe against his chest. Because she is a child. Her gift is not something to control or take. It is a light meant to grow freely. Here, among those who care, she will flourish. That is the choice humans make. We protect what is innocent. The collector's head tilted. Its voice was quieter now. You are not strong like us. Your bodies are fragile, yet your courage, it is unlike any we have seen. Lyra stepped forward slightly, though she stayed behind Mira. This is her world now, she said softly. She belongs with people who love her, not with those who seek to own her. For a long moment, the collectors were silent. Then, the lead one spoke. Perhaps we have underestimated this species. Power is not only strength, it is choice. And you have chosen well. The words carried a weight that Elias had never expected. They were not threats. They were acknowledgement. The collectors, despite their vast power, understood that there was something they could not take: the hearts of humans who chose compassion over fear. Slowly, the glowing figures began to step back, retreating into the shadows of the forest. Their movements were graceful, almost respectful. Elias watched them go, feeling a mix of relief and wonder. When the last glow disappeared, the garden felt peaceful again. Mira giggled and reached out toward a small flower growing by the path. As her tiny hand brushed the petals, the flower seemed to bloom brighter, its color richer. Elias bent down to watch, feeling a warmth in his chest. Life was everywhere around them, small and vibrant, and it was safe here. For now, at least. Lyra smiled at Elias. They will not return, she said quietly. At least not while humans stand together like this. Mira is safe. Elias nodded. And she always will be. We will make sure of that. The villagers who had stood with him now spoke softly among themselves, sharing quiet laughter and relief. They had seen something incredible. A child from the stars whose touch brought life, and the strength of ordinary humans who could protect her. In that moment they felt proud, not of power nor of skill, but of humanity itself. Marin walked over and touched Mira's small hand. "You are wonderful," she whispered, "and we will all help you grow." Mira laughed and clapped her hands, the sound bright as bells. Elias watched her, knowing that her life had just begun on Earth, and that it would be filled with love, care, and freedom. Lyra rested beside him. "I never thought I would see a place where humans could rise above fear and selfishness, but you have shown me hope." Elias smiled. "That is what we do. We are not perfect, but when it matters, we can choose kindness." The stars twinkled above them, peaceful and constant. The night was quiet now, filled with the soft sounds of the village and the gentle hum of life. In the garden, flowers glowed, faintly, Mira's gift touching everything with a sense of calm and joy. Over the next few days, life returned to a gentle rhythm. The villagers who knew the secret kept watch quietly, helping Elias and Lyra tend to Mira. They shared smiles, laughter, and small moments of joy. Mira grew stronger with each day, her gift touching not just plants and animals but the hearts of everyone around her. Elias often looked at the stars, thinking of the vast universe from which Mira had come. He wondered what other beings watched, from afar, and whether they would see humanity the way the collectors had. But he also knew one truth clearly. No matter what lay beyond the stars, the human heart was strong enough to protect the innocent. That strength could not be measured by power or by weapons or by skill. It was measured by compassion, courage, and the choice to do what is right. Lyra rested more each day, trusting Elias and the villagers with Mira's care. She smiled often now, seeing her child laugh and grow, safe among humans who had chosen love over fear. One evening, as the sun set in golden streaks across the sky, Mira toddled into the garden. Flowers bloomed where she stepped, leaves lifted toward her touch. Elias followed quietly, his heart swelling with pride and hope. Lyra watched from the doorway, her eyes soft with gratitude. Elias bent down and picked up Mira gently. "You are free now," he whispered. "This is your world and it is safe. We will help you grow, and you will bring life wherever you go." Mira smiled at him, her bright blue eyes sparkling with innocence and joy. She reached out her tiny hand, and the flowers around them seemed to bloom brighter. In that moment, Elias understood clearly what had been proven. Humanity's true strength was not in power or in what could be controlled, but in the choices they made to protect, nurture, and love. The night came, peaceful and calm. For the first time since their arrival, there were no glowing lights in the forest, no shadows moving at the edge of the garden. The collectors had left, not in anger, but with understanding. They had seen the human heart in action and recognized a strength they could not take. Lyra held Mira close as Elias and the villagers stood nearby, watching the stars. In that quiet, shining moment, hope felt endless. Humanity had been tested and it had risen. Elias whispered to the sky, "This is what it means to be human, to protect what is precious, to care for those who cannot protect themselves, and to stand together when it matters most." And in the garden where she had first arrived, Mira's small hands touched the flowers, the grass, and the earth. Everywhere she went, life grew stronger, brighter, and safer. The child of the stars was home, and humanity had proved itself worthy of her gift. The story of that night would not be written in history books, It would live quietly in the hearts of those who had stood together, and it would grow with every act of kindness, courage, and love that followed. The stars watched silently above, and humanity shone brightly beneath them.